Good evening. I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled November the 16th, 2020 meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in a moment of silent reflection, which gives us opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also to clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to consider here this evening. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on November the 2nd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for that meeting as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Is there any further discussion in regard to the meeting minutes for the meeting held on November the 2nd, 2020? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. We're on item 4 of this evening's agenda. Dr. Tetrick, recognitions.
Dr. Lee.
I am so pleased to present to you some exceptional students. West Virginia has administered the Golden Horseshoe Test each year since 1931 and is the longest running program of its kind in the United States. The top scoring students in each county received a prestigious award. The exam tests students' knowledge of West Virginia's citizenship, civics and government, economics, geography, history, and current events, and is considered one of the greatest honors bestowed upon students in West Virginia. This year, I believe, marks the 304th anniversary of the Golden Horseshoe tradition because it began in the early 1700s in Virginia when the then Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood saw the need for exploration of the land west of the Allegheny Mountains, most of which is now West Virginia. Spotswood organized a party of about 50 men to explore the frontier. At the end of the exploration, he presented each member of the party with a golden horseshoe, and translated from Latin, the inscription on each horseshoe read, "Thus he swears to cross the mountains." On the other side was written, "Order of the Golden Horseshoe." And because of this, the recipients became known as the Knights and Ladies of the Golden Horseshoe. Typically each spring, there is a statewide ceremony in Charleston in which our kiddos did not get to participate this year, which breaks my heart. However, I am proud to present this year's winners as they're being recognized at the local level, and Dr. Donna Burge-Tetrick has their Golden Horseshoe pin and will be presenting each of our students with that. The first one is Dawson Brown, representing Summersville Middle School, and I don't think he was able to join us. The second one is Aaron Mann, representing Summersville Middle School, so come on down. I have a couple of certificates for you, Aaron. One from the governor's office with the governor's signature, and one from the state superintendent's office. And Dr. Tetrick will give you your pen.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Such an honor. Okay. Just stand for a picture. Yeah. Good job.
And the next one I have is for Drake Odell, which at the time of testing was a New Life Christian Academy student, but prior to that had been an SMS student.
Yeah, yeah. Congratulations, Drake.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
Super proud.
Would you turn around here and look at the, there you go. Okay, good job.
The last winner who's going Adriana Shipflet, also representing Summersville Middle School.
So proud of your, of this, such a great accomplishment, Golden Horseshoe. Do you know how many people in West Virginia would love to have one of these? And so few ever provided to people. So anyway, congratulations.
Item 5 on this evening's agenda, discussion items and presentations, nothing listed there. Okay. All right. Item 6, action items, approval of the contract with Kylie Price, Certified Occupational Therapist Assistant. I'm assuming that Mrs. Young would do that?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Jenna, our occupational therapist, is up to 83 students, and with the geographic distance in the county, she's able to get everywhere in the 4 days, but she's not able to do any evaluation. And we expected an increase in referrals. Just typically when you get somebody on staff, you will get that. So she's working on weeding those and figuring out who exactly qualifies. So I don't think this will be something we'll need for a long time, but I'm asking for an assistant for her for 8 hours, and we will not need that as long as we're remote. She is able to do it virtually when we're all on remote, but when we return, she's going to have a little bit of assistance. It's 8 hours a week, up to 8 hours.
Is this the Price lady?
Yes, and Kylie
K-I-L-E.
Price has worked for us before. She's done some work.
That name sounds familiar.
Yes, yes, we've contracted with her in the past.
And she's occupational?
She's an assistant. Yes.
Occupational.
Okay, any further questions from Mrs. Young in regard to this contract? Now, this is paid for out of special programs funding.
No, it would be through the general fund,
Out of
or
general
county funds.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve action item A as presented this evening?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the contract with Kylie Price to Certified Occupational Therapy Assistant? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 7 this evening is consent items. Mr. Ness, I'm sure there are going to be some questions.
Okay. Well, the first item is payment of current invoices, if you have any questions there.
Give us just a second to go for a second. The Safeco Environmental Corporation?
Yes, Safeco is the company that we're contracted with to do some of the initial work at the Glade Creek site.
Okay.
So that is their first pay application. So like I mentioned last time, we'll go ahead and cut those checks. We'll be holding that until the reimbursement is back through the state and the federal government.
Has that been sent to them? I'm assuming
It is in internal review right now. We'll be sending that to SBA this week, I'm sure.
You might have hit it right the first time, internal review.
Now, is every check going to have to go through that?
Yes.
And that, where does that take place at?
We review it. Our construction manager reviews it. Our engineer reviews it. We review it here. Then we send it on to SBA. Their finance team takes a look at it. and then it goes on up to the state auditor, I believe, and then to DESM, which is the West Virginia Emergency Management, and then on up to FEMA.
Wow.
Yeah, and then once it's approved at that level, it comes back, flows back down to Nicholas County.
That could be a
Yes,
process.
we originally thought it could take up to 90 days, and then all of us got together and they condensed that down to approximately 39 days, I believe. And so we're hoping that we try to move it along as quickly as possible, because, you know, the contractors are depending on that money as well. So that's one reason we're going ahead and cutting the check in anticipation that when it is approved, it'll be ready to go at our level.
So when it comes back to you as approved, then we get our money, we send that check out.
Yes.
Okay. We're still holding funding for the company that's working in Richwood, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we have, they haven't released our money back to us, or they're not going to, are they, at this time?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. That's certainly going to affect that company's ability to work.
Yeah, I actually plan to speak about that because there's actually a work stoppage. The company did stop work, so it'll be stopped indefinitely.
We'll leave that to your presentation. Any further questions in regard to the payment of our invoices?
Item 2 is the supplements and transfers, and it's quite lengthy this time. The first 38 pages is hundreds of different lines of data that we carried over from the last fiscal year. Sadly, in 2020, we're still using an accounting system that was made in the 90s. And so when it comes to year end, there's just not a button to push and roll everything over. We have to manually put every single line back in a different year. And so all of that is if there was a balance left in a certain account code at the end of June, once we prepared financial statements and had everything finalized, now we're ready to roll that over into the FY21 year. And so if you have any particular questions there, I'd be happy to answer those for you. Otherwise, you can skip down to what would be page 39, which starts another batch of entries, which is 14 pages long. These are current transfers and supplements for the month of October. And I'll be happy to go through those if you'd like. A lot of it's just miscellaneous grants received. I'll hit some of the bigger ones there. The backpack program for Glade Creek and Mount Lookout was $16,000. We had a $25,000 McKinney-Vento grant, a $96,000 21st Century grant at Cherry River, fresh fruits and vegetables for Golly River, Cherry River, Zila, that would be Birch, Panther Creek, Summersville, and Mount Nebo. That was $73,000. $88,000 for Gear Up grant. That's a federal grant. And looks like that's at the 2 high schools.
You said Gear Up?
Gear Up, yes.
I'm sorry.
Finishing up our roof project, we had transferred the rest of the monies out of the county to cover our share of the roofing project, which was approximately 20%. That totaled $148,000. We got a small amount of money in for the Glade Creek Elementary Track Project, $3,500.
Did they ever raise money for the track at Panther Creek?
That was what
Oh,
That's part of it.
Glade Creek.
Oh, did I say Glade Creek? I meant Panther Creek.
Oh.
But yeah. Yes, that's part of it. They've been working for a year or so trying to raise some money to get that done.
Right.
Save the Children grant was next. May have been a transfer. Let me look. No, it was a supplement. There was a small special ed transfer, just moving some money around to where it better fit the needs. And it looks like probably their federal grant as well. Let me take a look at that. Yes, most of those pages there are where we originally budgeted the special ed grant in the spring, then we come back when in the fall and put it into more detailed lines. And there's our couple grants there for special ed. And then the very last one there for $43,000 was a transfer to move some of the state special or vocational monies around. And so anytime we move federal or state monies, we request that from the folks in Charleston that oversee that grant. I think technically we're allowed to change any budget up to 10% of the grant value, but we go ahead and get permission for everything. Any questions on the transfers and supplements?
There's one page here that lists 13 items, hardware, right to the penny, 2,038.47, 13 times.
Probably be easier for me to see it.
I was just curious about why there would be.
That was, we got, that is COVID, our CARES money, and we listed out for every single school that whatever that was purchased. It was computer hardware, computer.
Okay, that'd be the same thing on page 82 where there's 1,750.12 repeat.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the state wants us to budget or to expend that out in the schools. So if they ever wanted to see how much are you spending at Glade Creek, they could print a report at their level and say, oh. So we try to break that down as much detail as possible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Item 3 is the treasurer's report. This is your first treasurer's report for this fiscal year after we finished our financial statements up. It's for October. And if you look at the very first page is for your general fund, and you'll look at the bottom, including your fund balances, the total budget's $56,549,267.26. And so your first column's your budget, your next column's your revenues that we received or expenses when we get into expenses, and then the budget balance, and then the percent that we have received or spent. So for example, the real estate and personal property taxes, $5.5 million budget. Through October, we'd received $3.3 million. We have $2.1 million to receive, and so we've received approximately 61% of that total budget. Now, collections will go down over the next several months until we get to March, and then we'll have the second half of taxes coming in. And hopefully, and we probably will, meet our budget in those areas. The only thing that concerns me a little bit there is interest. It's a little bit low for where I'd like to be at this point. But the rest of it looks like it's on pretty good schedule. Some of these larger a few lines in here are budget balances that we will not do anything with until the end of the year or mid-year. For example, the on or behalf of retirement, unfunded retirement liability, that's a year-end entry. So overall, the meaningful line to look at is the subtotal line, and operating budget of $39 million. We received 11.9. We have $27.2 million to receive. which is approximately 30.56% of our budget. So we do the revenues for every fund. In debt service, we currently don't have anything in the debt service. Capital projects represents our roofing project that we were finishing up, and the FEMA projects for the construction of the new schools. And you can see our budget balance there is $175 million. We've received $521,000 so far this year. Budget balance of 4.1. And on the bottom of this page, we list every fund. If you look under the column that says per WEBIS, that's our accounting system. Fund 11 has $22.4 million in it on our accounting system. And we show you how much is in each fund. And then we compare that to what's actually in our bank accounts. And you can see the accounts listed to the right, how much is in checking and savings. And at the bottom, you have your grand total of cash as of October.
Kevin, refresh my memory, what is Fund 51 and Fund 71?
51 is your capital projects fund. That's where I just spoke about the construction of the new schools. And which other one? 71?
71.
71 is where that, it's typically a specialized federal grant. Years ago, we got some ARA monies. Now, we are operating the Federal CARES Act money in that fund. Fund 61 on your next page is our special revenue account, and this is where we keep track of all of our state and our federal grants. And again, at the bottom, you can see it's $11.2 million. In total, we've received $1.7 million. We have $9.5 to receive. We'll receive about 15%. Now, it will lag a little bit behind our other funds because these grants are reimbursable. So we have to spend them first, and then we request reimbursement after the fact.
Kevin, can we back up there just a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Fund 11,
Mm-hmm.
that's a checking account, okay. It says 22,461,
Mm-hmm.
731, but we actually only have 10,786, 859.
Right. If you,
What's the big difference?
well, Fund 11, the line doesn't correlate directly across. So all of the monies that we have in the accounting system on the left-hand side is broken down in some form or fashion on the right-hand side. So I don't have everything in checking account. I have some of it in CDs at United National Bank, some in savings, across all of those. So I only have $10 million in our checking account of the 22. The rest of it, most of it's down there at United National Bank in a CD. Does that make sense? So let's take a look at the expenses. If you flip it over, well, I think maybe there's another sheet there. Yeah. The Fund 71, the Federal Stimulus and Stabilization Grant, which is Fund 71, shows a $1,248,000 CARES money that we were awarded, and we've received $929,000 and have a budget balance of $26,500. Now,
That's
looking
what
at
we used about iPads and metal, detectors and all that.
cleaning supplies, everything related to COVID. The next page are the expenditures for each of those funds. And again, looking at the bottom, a $56 million budget. We've spent $7.8 million. We have $20.7 million allocated or encumbered for payroll, which leaves about $27.9 million available. Now, just as an example, we break all of our expenses down into different program functions, and of course the biggest one is your regular and secondary education, $19 million budget. across the top line. We've spent $3.3 million, 10.6 in payroll, which would leave about $5.2 million that we have budgeted in that area. And then you can see down the right-hand column what percentage we have spent.
Whose encumbered salaries there are the remaining salaries for the rest of this fiscal year, correct?
Yes. Based upon employees that were currently had an assignment or a job based upon the day that I did that. So if we've hired people since then, or people have resigned and not been replaced yet, then it wouldn't be in that number. But generally, at least a couple times a year, I'll go in and refresh that number just so that we have the most accurate.
Since we made the pay raises retroactive, is that in here?
That is not in. No.
That's not in there.
No. So that's the general fund. And then you can look at the other funds, debt service and your capital projects fund, followed by the special revenue and the CARES Act. Do you have any questions on the treasurer's report?
I have a question, but it's not anything right here. You know where we were doing that energy saving and that, we don't owe anything else on that, do we? Did we pay that off last year?
No, we
Still owe?
no, we're going to pay on that for a long time.
Oh, were we?
Oh, yeah. In theory, the savings that we are receiving from the procedures or the projects that we put in place is going to pay for about 3/4 of the total cost. But the board invested, just from memory, very roughly, about $4.3 million in the project. We're supposed to get about $2.2 or $2.3 million back in savings over a period of 15 years. And so basically the board invested about $1 million at a very low interest rate to upgrade some of those very aging systems, some old boiler systems that weren't as efficient. And so
I guess I'm thinking about the report. Remember the report that was?
yes, we don't pay for that report anymore.
Okay.
We basically said, yes, we agree that we have savings based upon this data, and that it's not necessary to do an analysis of that every single year for 15 years.
That saved us about,
$16,000
I was
a
thinking
year.
15 or 16,000 a
We
year.
have a lot.
Well, plus the fact you had better heat, better lighting. Of course, you lost 3 of your biggest buildings, bigger buildings that were in that project, which what threw it off, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, originally when that was set up, it was every school, and then when the flood occurred, and so then we had to go back and amend that contract because those schools were no longer an option. So we took those out and reworked the contract, adjusted the contract based upon the need.
FEMA 428 plan, you list year-to-date expenditures, $306,714.80. How's that possible? The Glade Creek was $2.5 billion or so. Has none of that come out of the FEMA 428?
That is only the information that occurred since July, where we bought the land in the previous year. That was back up in January of the last fiscal year. So all that you'll see here is current data from July 1 of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. So that's what we've spent since July on the project. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board?
What time of year do you have the audits done?
What time of the
Is it
year?
that time to do them? Have you been?
We typically do those in, it's generally January or February, they come in.
Is there a
Let's do it in-
deadline on when those have to be completed?
They have to be done, complete by March 25th.
Any further questions, anybody? Finance, treasurer's report or anything? Hearing, Mr. Hess, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Is there a motion to approve consent item A as presented? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Perry seconds. Any further question in regard to the finance items presented this evening? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent, Mrs. Atkins, board members, is there a need for an executive session to discuss personnel matters?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Atkins, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, you have before you the updated personnel agenda. Because we had 2 holidays after the last board meeting, that kind of ran into our job posting time, so none of the job postings came down before the agenda deadline. So I have several names to read to you, and I will read those out loud, and an updated copy has also been made available to the public. For the position of substitute teacher for Nicholas County Schools, employee effective upon WVDE approval, Autumn Cox, Mary Armentrout, Kayla Legg. Danica Kreitz, employing the position of restricted substitute teacher for Nicholas County Schools, effective upon WVDE approval. Matt Morriston, employee in the position of social studies teacher at Summersville Middle School, effective upon hire of his replacement. Under service, Joanne Wilfong, employee in the position of custodian 3 at Cherry River Elementary School, effective December 3rd, 2020. Tyler Murphy, employee in the position of custodian 3 at Summersville Elementary School, effective December 3rd, 2020. Casey Dyer, employee in the position of one-on-one transportation instruction aide 4 for a student currently enrolled at Zila Elementary School, effective December 3rd, 2020. Matthew Phillips, employee in the position of halftime bus operator for Bus 96, effective December 3rd, 2020. Under professional extracurricular, Derek Silman, employing the position of head basketball coach at Richwood Middle School, effective upon completion of any applicable WVSSAC and WVDE requirements. Lundy Bailey, employing the position of temporary support staff for boys basketball at Richwood Middle School, effective upon completion of any applicable WVSSAC, WVDE requirements. Melissa Cole, employing the position of school technology contact for Richwood Middle School, effective November 17th, 2020. Todd Russell, employee in the position of assistant boys basketball coach for Richwood High School, effective upon completion of any applicable WVSSAC and WVDE requirements. Julie Kaiser, employee in the position of school technology contact for Nicholas County High School, effective November 17th, 2020. Levi Brake, employee in the position of assistant wrestling coach at Summersville Middle School, effective upon completion of any applicable WVSSAC, WVDE requirements. Candace Key, employee in the position of 21st Century after-school tutor for Mount Look Elementary School, effective with the start of the program. Under consent, Brian Jarrett resigns his position as assistant track coach at Richwood Middle School, effective November 13th, 2020. And also approve the voluntary transfer for Kelly Tyler from her position as Title I teacher at Cherry River Elementary to flex teacher at the same school as recommended by the principal pursuant to West Virginia Code 18A-4-7AU. And also on the back, you do have a leave request. that I will not read out loud.
On the substitute,
Mhm.
what is the restricted substitute?
This is a new position that has been created because we have such a shortage of substitute teachers. We actually had to request a waiver from the state board stating that we had a shortage of substitute teachers, who gave us permission to hire for this position. And what this is people who have an associate's degree or who are in the process of doing their student teaching can serve as substitute teachers for up to 10 days in one position.
That's under that college student.
Well, they can have an associate's degree too. So they can be in a teacher prep program and be in the middle of doing their student teaching, or they can have an associate's degree.
At the top of the page, Matt Morrison, I thought we just hired him.
We did. For Richwood High School, that's why he's going to stay until the hire of his replacement.
It says Richwood Middle.
It is Richwood Middle.
Yeah, he's at Richwood Middle. He's going to Summersville Middle School. But he's going to stay at Richwood Middle School until we hire his replacement or move it the school year.
So if this goes into the next school year, would he still remain there? Or does he-
No, we'll let him move it to end of the year.
Okay, gotcha. These WVSSAC and / WVDE trainings, are those, does this take long for those coaches to get there? or-
Not usually. That's,
Is it a training online or something like that?
I think they have it online. There's certain coaching courses they have to take. They have to undergo a background check. So it depends. If somebody's brand new out of the gate, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks.
Madam Superintendent, I think I read in your communication that, I might be wrong on this, but the governor put winter sports on hold until January 11th.
Correct.
Is that to begin the sport practice, or is it to begin the season?
Practice, I understand.
Practice, okay.
If I understood correctly, Mr. Phoenix, you said they could practice for 1 week
1 week?
and then get it on.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Atkins.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to personnel? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the personnel agendas presented this evening?
I make that motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Amick seconds. Any further discussion in regard to personnel matters? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 9 on this evening's agenda, superintendent's information.
Yes, each one of you, this is just some copies of some emails.
Secretary.
I'll be mine. And this.
This, yeah, let's see if this is another one.
I did it this way because I thought it might be easier to read.
Okay.
Okay. As I stated a few weeks ago, Richwood floodplain manager, through the hired consultant, have continued to ask for a floodplain, an H&H study. And there's, the state floodplain manager been on a call, and I have an email, I actually forgot to bring it, unless I provided it last time, stating that it wasn't, it wasn't necessary for Richwood to ask for an H&H study in a floodplain, and but of course it's still their prerogative to do so. The same consultant sent us a floodplain ordinance passed in 2011, but the floodplain ordinance on their website that we have access to was not of the 2011. It was an older floodplain ordinance. So I have no idea what is going on or why, but what I do know is I'm very frustrated because today the contractor stopped construction. The reality is the construction is stopped, and we can throw flowery words around all we want about cooperation. If we had cooperation, construction would not have stopped. The unfortunate thing that bothers me is that building this school in the city of Richwood, there was only a small number of parents able to vote on this in this most recent election. And you've got lots and lots of other parents who are being affected by the decisions that's being made in the city of Richwood because of the stopping of the construction. So I really hope that enough people listen to this meeting and they start reaching out and asking for questions and demand that something happen. So I sent you copies of the emails, and there's a couple of things going on. So we also have a project for the Memorial Trail located at the old Richwood Middle School site and football stadium improvements that I've been trying to get made. But unfortunately, we've not had a lot of luck because we're just not been able to get contractors to bid on these projects. So after we had the issues with the city of Richwood requesting the H&H study, I told the architect he better verify whether we needed that H&H study because it says in this floodplain ordinance of 2011 that's nowhere to be found except for where their engineer sent to us. It says anything within the floodplain. Now, mind you, in that same ordinance, it also provides a definition of construction. The parking lot at Cherry River does not meet the definition that it has in that ordinance, but that's another point. So anyway, our architect did send an email, and you have it before you, and it just says, it was to Amy Donaldo, and it says, we have the following 2 additional projects that are ready to go to bid. Memorial Walking Trail located on the old Richwood Middle School site and the Richwood Football Stadium improvements. Both projects are listed in the floodplain and portions in the floodway. That because the football field's, part of it's in the floodway. The Memorial Walking Trail is a FEMA-funded project as part of the flood relief efforts. It consists of a walking trail with monument signage along the path depicting the history of the Richwood schools. The football stadium renovations include, but are not limited to, the following: electrical upgrades, ticket booth upgrades, and/or replacement with new. That definitely, according to the architect, is a structure and would be considered something that potentially could cause interference. New sound system, bleacher painting, and then the new entrance into the stadium. That again is another structure that I was hoping to have put at the entrance, something to make the football stadium real attractive. And our architect says, do we need to have an H&H study prior to these projects going to bid and construction, especially if FEMA has approved the Memorial Walking Trail? Just curious on how we should proceed. Your guidance on moving forward would be appreciated. So there was a response back from Jeremiah Tuggle, who is a consultant. Mr. Ferguson, good afternoon. Permit applications and associated fees for the reference projects should be submitted in accordance with the requirements set forth in the floodplain ordinance. However, based on a preliminary review of the project descriptions, it appears the projects will not modify the special floodplain hazard area. If that is the case, a simple no-rise certificate signed and sealed by a professional engineer will suffice in lieu of an H&H study. For clarification, a no-rise certificate signed and sealed by a professional engineer associated with the parking lot project is accepted in lieu of an H&H study as well. So there's a new addition. So now Jeremiah Tuggle is saying that if we give them a no-rise certificate, then we don't have to have an H&H study. Now, the problem with that, according to our architect, is without an H&H study, you can't do a no-rise certificate. So, all right, what is this? Is this a word game again? So, okay, just give us a no-rise certificate. So if my architect is correct in what he's saying, that you can't do it without an H&H study, therein lies a problem. So, according to some calculations from the architect, again, Kanawha County didn't request this. They didn't have to go through this. But according to our architect, he says that their calculations show that our parking lot, I asked that the parking lot at the Glade Creek, or at the Watergate property, I asked that it be made to be ADA compliant and paved. Because when we have events at the Watergate, at that parking lot, when we have events, I want community to be able to park there and be able to walk into the school. If they have, I want it to meet ADA requirements. I wanted it to. So that's why and I said, please expand it as much as you can. So according to the architect, to get a no-rise certificate from what they have, from what they've calculated, the way it currently stands, it will rise 1/32 of an inch downstream in the floodplain. That's like the level of a hair, okay? One hair. So to give a no-rise, zero-rise certificate, according to my architect, they will have to go in and physically saw off 16 to 20 parking spaces, remove the dirt from that area, remove the paving, take it back down a foot, and gravel it. Therefore, it will no longer be ADA compliant, and we will be able to get an H&H study, and we will be able to get a no-rise certificate. You know what? That's sad. That's sad. If that happens, that's sad. So, been very frustrated over this, have continued to work and spend a lot of time on this nonsense. So, this evening, in talking with our architect, he did pull up an old H&H study from 2017 that was done when we did the removal of the schools. So what he hopes will happen, according to this, he hopes they will accept the 2017 H&H study that we have. And that H&H study shows with the removal of those schools, it lessens the impact of water flowing down the river, which means it will no longer be restricted because the schools are no longer there, which will allow it to flow better and lessen the impact down by Cherry River. And if that's the case, and they accept this H&H study as it is, without writing a zero-rise certificate, then we may be in good shape. At this point, I have no idea. But the reason I'm so frustrated is the city of Richwood, and I've been told two different names that called, so I won't even call out the name, had called FEMA and called Department of Homeland Security and advised them that we weren't operating properly, we didn't have this floodplain permit, therefore the money's being held. So because the money's being held, our contract has now stopped work. So somebody needs to answer to the parents of this community, and this is the information I have.
Would the removal of that Watergate structure itself not greatly diminish the water,
I would think so, but
Water
when the
down
H&H
there?
study was done, the water gate was still there. And I don't know, I don't know enough about it to explain or understand the process. All I know is what the architect said. And yes, you would think so, Mrs. Kaufman, that it would. I'm hoping that someone will start to work with us instead of giving us lip service and give us permits so we can pay these contractors and we can get these kids in schools.
Well, that certainly is the goal of several people who write in the newspaper, the local newspaper. Why aren't they constructing these schools? Why aren't they doing it? Well, we're trying to do it, and then we have obstructions such as this that cause a work stoppage. So I don't know that their concern is about the children. It's perhaps about their own personal time they spend in the school or whatever, and the memories they have of that. And they're still living in the past. We need to get kids in schools. We're starting 5 years now. They're in pods. And these people just don't appear to be concerned about the children. That's maddening. And I think the citizens as a whole, the greater community of Nicholas, needs to be concerned about this. We need to make progress, and we're trying to do so. Now, those, I can't see positive things coming as a result of them not working with us.
You asked me to speak with the mayor and the city officials in Richwood. So maybe we can reason together here. In this FEMA report prepared by Terradon, it says the applicant, Nicholas County Board of Education, is responsible for obtaining and complying with all required local, state, and federal permits and approvals. It appears from these letters that when it says a simple no-rise certificate signed and sealed by a professional engineer will suffice in lieu of an H&H study, this is the city's attempt to reach out and cooperate, giving another possibility for the engineers, and Mr. Ferguson seems to agree, especially at the football field and the Memorial Walking Trail. The city says it does not look like anything's going to be disturbed there, and all that's necessary is to obtain the permit.
And as I stated earlier,
Obtain the permit.
he said that he cannot give the no-rise permit without an H&H study. And that's where the play on words come. So they can appear to try to be working with you, and I appreciate you talking to them. But they can say what they want. How can someone go out and according to our engineer, I'm not an architect, I don't know. But according to our architect, he said that unless they have an H&H study, they cannot do a zero rise. So again,
Well, what has the city said to you when you talked with them?
the city has not reached out to me. I have my architect works directly, or supposed to work directly with Amy Donaldo, the floodplain manager. And there was a call placed from the state SBA a few weeks ago to her, and the engineer was on. And of course, Gary Johnson was uninvited, but he accessed the call as well and pretty well ran the call from what I understand. So you said in one of the prior board meetings that you would ask the city to reach out to me. They have not.
Well, the city feels like that you should reach out to them, because it is this project that needs the permits. The city doesn't need anything from us. We need something from the city. We need to apply to get the required permits and to work with the city so that this can continue. And Mr. Ferguson seems like he's very cooperative, they say.
I believe the contractor has reached out to the city for permits and actually asked on at least 2 or 3 occasions for the floodplain permit. Is that correct?
They absolutely have, and that's what I'm saying. Mr. Moose, with all due respect, you can either be an advocate for the city of Richwood or for this board and the kids. And the city of Richwood is doing us no favors right now. And no matter what they say and how much they try to color it up, the fact is, we have a work stoppage because they won't give us a permit.
Well, why don't you talk to them?
We've applied for permits.
No, why don't you personally talk to them?
Who am I supposed to talk to?
The mayor and Amy, the
Well, I didn't know
floodplain.
the mayor had anything in this. He wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to be the floodplain manager, according to what I've been told.
Well, floodplain manager, Amy. It also says in here, that, and this is in the FEMA report, based on the people who represent this board, the city of Richwood's current floodplain ordinance was adopted in 2011.
On their website, it absolutely is not on there. They can say that they adopted it in 2011. If they did, why do they not have that on on the website for us to access? I can't go dig through minutes and buried files to determine the most accurate floodplain ordinance. We go by what is on their website. And what it says is we have to comply with local and state, of what the FEMA document says, which is accurate. We have to apply with local and state. But what I'm trying to explain is the state absolutely told the city of Richwood that that is not something that that they deem as being required or necessary. But the city can go above and beyond and ask for this additional requirement.
Well, they also say that unless they comply with the floodplain requirements, that they can lose their floodplain insurance. But if FEMA just says, don't worry about it, then they're willing to not worry about
FEMA
it.
did tell them that.
And
FEMA did tell them that. FEMA's already done the approvals, they already spoke to FEMA, but they are asserting their additional rule. I would prefer, if they want to communicate, there was an application made for a floodplain permit, then there needs to be written response. The written response went back with me copied on it, but when the city of Richwood responded, they pulled me off of the email. So, you know, I would rather communicate with them in writing because I don't honor their word. I don't honor the things that they say. I don't have much confidence or faith in the things that they say. If they want to communicate, they need to communicate in writing, but they pulled me off of the email. And I was on it. So I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate you talking to them, but what I'm telling you is there's a work stoppage because they won't do a permit. We've been told, they've been told, it is absolutely not necessary, but they're still requiring it.
No.
And they're saying that their consultant is calling the shots.
Who said it was not necessary?
I gave you the email, J.B. Miller gave you the email with Gershaver.
Yeah, but that doesn't release them from their requirement to have flood insurance. And if they don't do what the requirements of the flood insurance, then they lose their flood insurance.
Well, Kanawha County.
The only person that can waive that would be FEMA, who has the federal flood insurance.
FEMA approved the plan. Yeah, it's been approved, that's what I'm saying. FEMA approved all of this.
Just a second, this is not a courtroom where things are litigated between a board member and the superintendent for a city that claims that they want something done. This needs to be done with the city of Richwood reaching out to the superintendent of schools and sitting down and talking with her. It's what I asked you about 6 weeks ago. So this is not to be litigated here. We can't litigate it. I mean, you have one feeling about it, the superintendent has another. So we need to sit down. The city needs to be respectful of us, call the superintendent, sit down with her. We thought we were doing exactly what we should have been doing in the first place in the construction process. And then they started saying, well, you're not doing it, but they didn't communicate with us. They communicated to the SBA and other organizations. Here's where they need to be communicating. So this is not, we can't litigate this here. This is not a courtroom.
We have a right to discuss
We can discuss.
anything that is brought up during the meeting, and this has been brought up during the
Well,
meeting.
you can discuss it all you want to. It can't be litigated here. I mean, all we're going to do is say, you're going to say, this is what Richwood thinks, this is what I think.
Well, we need to know from both sides. And-
Well, that we do that by sitting down in a meeting and working this out.
I mean, the permit was applied for. And like I said, the email that I sent you from, or that you got a copy of, that was the state floodplain director who said it was not required. As far as FEMA goes, everything has been presented. FEMA's not in this, and I can't move forward. I want this board to know, as I said earlier, I can't move forward. We're at an impasse until, if the city accepts this 2017 H&H study and signs off on permit and lets us go forward, and then we can start construction again. But at this point, all the money that it's going to cost us for this company sitting by and not working is going to be money that's going to come off the Richwood Schools project.
Well, could you clarify for me? Earlier, you stated we're talking a 32nd of an inch. Are you talking building up at the parking area? And then you said, if we have to go with a 32nd of an inch, I'm going to have to take off some parking places.
Okay,
Did I understand that?
no, so what happened is, with the way that it's currently built up, they built the parking lot up to make it ADA compliant so it could be paved. There wasn't any requirement to pave that parking lot, and there wasn't any requirement to make it ADA accessible. But that's something that I'm trying to do for everyone that uses that facility. So in doing that, according to their calculations, they believe that it will raise no more than a 32nd of an inch the water. So when the water, if there's another flood, they believe that it will raise, the calculations, a 32nd of an inch downstream. They said that is not a rise, but it is a mathematical rise. So that's why they're telling me that if they have to do an H&H study, they have to go ahead, and they did send a revised packet to the city of Richwood, and it says in there they'll be cutting off the section, and they'll have to take the parking lot back down. I've done about all I can do, and if they want the bare minimum, that's, and I hate to see that taken away from them. I hate to see, for whatever reason someone has, to see the whole community and people who go to that school not have a paved parking lot with ADA accessibility. I hate that. But if that's what it has to be, then that's what it'll have to be. But they've got to give, and the only thing I know is FEMA approved all of this. They saw the parking lot, all of that. The state saw it. The state's intervened. They tried to talk. But the city of Richwood has provided this 2011 ordinance that is not anywhere on their website, unless they put it on since I talked to Mr. Moose.
I have a question here, maybe you can clarify for me. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but it says, based on the preliminary review of the project descriptions, it appears the projects will not modify the special floodplain hazard area. If that is the case, a simple no-rise certificate signed and sealed by a professional engineer will suffice in lieu of an H&H study. For clarification, a no-rise certification signed and sealed by a professional engineer associated with the parking lot project is acceptable in lieu of an H&H study as well. So, if they gave it, if the engineer gave them the no-rise certification, but then it turns out that it did have the, what happens then?
Well, they can't. That would be, they would lose their license. My architect said that's where the play on words is coming in. That's the game that's being played. Give me a no-rise certificate, and you don't have to have an H&H study. My architect says they have to do an H&H study to give the no-rise certificate.
So if we do the H&H study and it shows a 32nd of an inch rise, then what happens?
Well, They're saying they want a no-rise certificate. So
That we
if they
can't get the
know
permit.
off the top that it's gonna be a 32nd of an inch, then they're proposing to go ahead and rip it all back up. And
The
take it
architect's
down and
proposing
gravel
to
it.
rip it up.
Do what?
Our architect
Yes.
is proposing to rip it up.
Yes, that's absolutely what they plan to do. They have a modified plan to do that. And what all I want to do is, if this is the nonsense we're gonna go through, I want the community to know what's happening, and hopefully they will get involved.
Well, if it only would be the 32nd of an inch, could the city not go ahead and issue the permit? I mean, if
Well,
that's
that-
all the more rise that it is.
That's what we're
would they do
saying.
that?
Well, the thing of it is, to be practical, you could have a tree fall in the river anywhere, and it would cause more rise than that. You know, if there's a flooding condition going on, you know.
Isn't this parking lot already paved?
Yeah, but they're gonna have to rip it back up. To get a no-rise certificate, the architect has a plan, they've already submitted it. They're gonna saw off a section of remove about a section that could park 16 to 20 vehicles, and they're gonna rip the rest of it up and take it down to gravel.
And it won't have a pavement at all.
It will not be paved, and it will not be ADA compliant. We can make the other area up behind the school that's currently paved, when that's final, we can make that ADA compliant. But again,
Well, you said earlier that the two schools that have been removed that were in the flood, would that not alleviate on downstream?
he said that it would, and he said that helps the entire situation with those two schools being removed. And one would think that also with the Watergate being removed, that would help. So we've actually improved conditions by removing those facilities.
Would
So,
the H&H study not take that into consideration?
well, yeah, from my understanding. I didn't know that the work stoppage was going to happen today. It just happened, where I would have had the architect up here to speak to you. And I can have him at the next board meeting. But
So now, nobody's working, and the kids are gonna be in the pods longer. How long will this stoppage be?
I guess until the city decides to give us a permit.
And going back to this, asking an engineer to sign a certificate, I mean, I don't know where you could get any engineer that's going to put his license on the line to sign when it might come back after the H&H study that it did raise 1/32 of an inch. This says a certificate of 0 increase. And so nobody's going to put their license on the line, I wouldn't think, to sign a document like that.
That's what our architect said. He said that, you know, if someone, he said, I'm not going to have any of my men do anything fraudulent. And he said, if we were to go and sign something and state that 0 rise, then someone go in and do a study, he said, and it comes back with a rise, as we predicted it will, then he said they can lose their license. So it's just the point that when I know that Kanawha County, they were okay and they didn't have to go through this hassle on their schools, and we are, it's frustrating. And people can say what they want to say, but when I've had enough folks that I've called and talked to, it's a little bit ridiculous.
And we also have an H&H study that was done in 2017. We've sent a copy of that to them now, which includes Cherry River site.
We're hopeful that they accept it.
But they have the power within their own document to say that they don't accept it, I would
Well,
assume.
According to, yes, they have, right.
Okay.
We don't know if they'll accept it or not, but again, the ordinance that they pulled out was in 2011. The other one, you know, we're being asked to be held to a standard of an ordinance that we didn't even know existed, because our architect went by what was online.
Well, the schools themselves wouldn't require anything but a building permit.
And
Is that
again,
correct? Because they're not even in the floodplain or,
they're in, well,
all you need is a building permit.
Uh,
And that's what Kanawha County did. They applied for building permits they paid their fees, and it went very smoothly because they worked with the people who were issuing those permits. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do.
And it's my understanding that our contractor has done that. They've reached out and
Yes.
requested the permits.
And ZMM and Terradon's the one who also did the work for Kanawha County, and they know the difference of what they got accepted there and what wasn't accepted here. So, you know,
I mean,
they're
is
the
this
ones
just a matter
telling me.
that, Mr. Moose, you're saying if the superintendent would just call Richwood and just call them, that would resolve this whole thing?
It could. It could. It's a possibility.
Well, why don't, how about them calling us?
They're communicating through
Through you and
several letters, but it's us who is applying for the permit. It's not their job to come to us and say, let me help you with this permit.
If they went to school, why wouldn't they?
The contractor reached out, I believe in March. There's been a couple of times, my understanding is correct, that they reached out and asked for this floodplain permit.
Well, the next issue is going to be the building permit. So Mr. Johnson's already made the statement on that phone call, and he wants to know, you know, we have the information, we don't pay for building permits, and he wanted to know why, from what I was told, why we objected because we could be reimbursed for that. Well, when we've got all of the information in front of us that says that we don't have to pay for building permits, our money is not getting reimbursed. It comes off the top. It comes off of whatever cost that school. Just like there being no taxes they just raised, guess what? That just comes off the school. So I'm not here to make the city of Richwood rich. What I want to do is build a school. And I feel like some people are thinking they're going to line their pockets. Who knows? I don't know what they're trying to do. But in the past, the record's not looked too good for the city.
But Kanawha County did pay for their permits and they were reimbursed by FEMA, you'll find.
We have a
FEMA will
428
reimburse.
plan, Mr. Moose, and we don't get reimbursed by just submitting things. We have a capped amount of money. And whatever money is spent either goes in the city of Richwood's coffers or it goes to our kids. So some people are going to have to decide, do they want to make the city of Richwood wealthy or do they want to build a nice school?
How much money are we talking about?
I'm not sure. It's someone said about 7,000, but I'm not going to give a single dime that belongs to our kids to a city. If it belongs to our kids, I absolutely will not promote giving a dime of our money that should be going to kids to someone else. Won't do it.
No permits have been required at the Glade Creek site, nothing of that nature by county commission or building commission or anyone.
They haven't made their applications yet because we were focusing on trying to get the Richwood area done. We were trying to get all that put together. But what I will tell you is that we have building permits. I've got all the information. The state has the information. The Attorney General has the information. We don't pay for building permits. So that'll probably be our next holdup. It sounds like you've made me privy to some information that that's going to be a holdup for us.
I'm sorry, what?
Are you privy to information that that's going to be our next holdup, maybe?
I'm not privy to any more information than you are. You're privy to much more information than I am.
Not when it comes to Richwood.
Well, you asked me to speak with them, and I did, and I will continue if you would like, but I'm asking you to speak with them.
So if I call and ask them, pretty please, will you approve this? They're going to say, okay, you're not going to have to do the H&H study. You're not going to have to do this. I mean, this is what we've got. This is a permit. This is what they're saying has to be done. If I call and say, you don't have to approve, I mean, I don't get it. But I am being copied on the emails now, an email that went out, and I expect the city of Richwood to continue to copy me. And if I'm not copied, then of course communication will stop. And I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm not going to be cut out of the loop anymore.
Well, I would personally, if it were me, I would say, what can I do to expedite this? What can I do? You tell me what I need to do, and then I'll tell you whether I can do it or not.
But aren't they telling me that this is what we
I'd start a
need?
line of communication.
Isn't this what they're telling me that we need? They're telling us this, the H&H study and the no-rise certificate. That's what they're saying we need.
How long will that take?
It's gonna take 8 weeks
Oh, goodness.
Well, unless they accept that 2017.
if they accept that. And that's why I'm hoping that they accept that. But again, what will be the next obstacle? Will it be a building permit? It's already been applied for.
In the 2017, was the Watergate even 20?
Watergate was still there.
It was still there?
Uh-huh. This was done when the schools, we had to have this done when the schools were,
Well, that wouldn't be an accurate study then if the Watergate was still there with it. I mean,
I, I'm being told from Terradon Engineering that it should be accepted. Like I said, only thing I can go by is what the architect is telling me and the communication I have before me.
Did our architect tell them that there would be a little bit of a rise there? I mean, did he convey that to the floodplain manager up there, that there would be a 32nd of an inch
They built
rise?
it up 1 foot. They built the parking lot up 1 foot.
So it's more than a 32nd of an inch?
But they built the rise, the water will be, they're saying the elevation downstream will be a 32nd of an inch is what they are calculating it at. The parking lot was built up a foot.
I can't understand why the engineers didn't resolve this prior to all of this.
It's because the engineers,
How can an engineer begin work and not have the necessary permits?
it's because the engineers went with what was online, and also, even according to their 2011 study, the parking lot does not meet the definition of construction that would even require a permit. And that's what I pointed out to you the other night. It doesn't even meet the definition.
I'm afraid that we're going to have another meeting before our regular meeting. 8 weeks is just too long. And see if some of this has been resolved.
Well, if you want me to keep out of it, I will. You asked me to work with the city, and I did, and I'm trying to bring you together.
They had only been communicating with you, so I think you could be a good liaison.
No, I go and communicate with them. They don't communicate with me. I go to them.
Well, Mr. Johnson asked when someone approached him, have you talked to Roy Moose? So there is a communication there, there's an expectation there. So that was reported back. So again, I think you could be a real liaison and an asset to help get these things resolved. We're at a standstill. And this is what I was afraid was going to happen. They're not going to work without being paid. All I can say, Mr. Moose, is when I've got the state folks telling me that this is unusual for them to make this type of request and that they feel that they're being a barrier, I'm relaying that. That's all I can do is relay what I'm being told and what people feel is happening. I mean, of course, our engineers, our architects not going to call up and rant and rave and throw a fit. Yeah, they're trying to talk and be cordial, but they also feel that the expectation is ridiculous. And if they want to do it right, they wanted a school in Richwood. We've heard it over and over and over. They wanted a school in Richwood. We want to get the school built in Richwood. Our kids deserve to be in a school. And this affects kids in Craigsville. It affects kids all over the area, not just in the city of Richwood. But the city of Richwood is the one holding up our permits. And that our architects did try to do the right process.
But this has nothing to do with the construction of the school.
What does it have to do with?
The parking lot.
And if we can't get the parking lot through, you realize the water that flows under the road beside of the gym, that it flooded the schools. That was one of the first corrective actions that we needed to take. We needed to correct that to keep the school from flooding from water runoff. So you don't go out, and then we also needed to have, if we hadn't done this, then our teachers were going to have to park at the Red Brick Gym, and they were going to have to be shuttled into school. But with them opening and making this bigger, it was made so they would have enough space for teachers to park and have a layout pad for those construction workers to work. So this was something really to try to help the staff in both of those schools. We didn't have to do that. We could have shuttled them back and forth, but that wasn't a good thing. So I have tried my best to figure out ways to accommodate the folks who were most affected by this. That I've tried. So that's the whole purpose of it. So if we can't even get a little $1.2 million contract completed to take care of the water drainage and provide parking for our teachers so we can start the construction, I mean, this is in the phasing plan, then I don't know what else to say.
I understand.
Well, the main thing that they're concerned about is losing their federal flood insurance if they don't comply with the regulations of that insurance policy.
And have they talked to anybody from FEMA?
Oh, yeah.
And has FEMA told them that? They were going to lose it if we built that parking lot?
Unless they comply with the permits and requirements.
Or do you have some documentation on that?
I have the person's card that you can talk to.
That would be much appreciated, because our FEMA folks are not telling us that.
I want to go back to another thing about the communication. We did not know there was a problem until it came back around from Richwood talking to people in Charleston, and then it comes back to the school system. The communication, why didn't they reach out to the superintendent to begin with? And that would have maybe resolved a lot of issues in the very beginning. So it's not a situation where the superintendent's being made to feel bad here because she's not reaching out to Richwood. When the problem started, they went to Charleston instead of coming to us, the source of all the construction that's going to take place over there.
I'll have to fax that to you tomorrow.
Okay, if you can do that, that would be much appreciated. And I will call FEMA and find out what is, what they're being told and why they're being told such things, because that's not.
Yeah, if FEMA waives it and the flood insurance waives it, then
And you
it's
do
a
have
go.
You have the name of it? You have the name of the person you can send me? Okay.
Any other questions for the superintendent in regard to her information on the construction? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports.
Okay,
Next item-
I have one more
Oh,
thing.
okay, I'm sorry.
What I wanted to talk to you about was, I don't think I've mentioned this, about school closure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the health department contacted me. We had several cases. We had a steep rise over the weekend. And I was asked Saturday if I would consider closing schools. I told the health department I wanted to sleep on it. Let's just see what the numbers look like the following day. So on Sunday, called me back. We had even more. And I was asked again if I would consider closing school. And I said, if that is your recommendation and if that's the right thing to do, then I will close schools. But before I did that, I did send each of you board members a text message letting you know that that was my thoughts on it. I didn't hear anyone contact me, say anything, give me any type of, feeling one way or the other, so I moved forward with the closure. We have had staffing issues, even more so than normal, because most people are concerned if they wake up with a fever or a sore throat or a headache. People are being very conscientious and not coming to work, which I'm glad they're not, but that causes us to have more of a shortage. Then when we have teachers that are quarantined, or they have family members who have COVID and they're quarantined because of that, we've had a real shortage in the school system. I think that that's going to continue to get worse. I will tell you that I think our teachers are doing a really good job with this. State Superintendent, in his presentation after the governor spoke, he did ask us to make sure that we had our staff report to work during the closure. And so I did make that known. So staff does have to report. One of the problems we have, we do have a blended and remote learning guide this board approved, looked at back in August. It's very well laid out with teacher expectations, student expectations, parent expectations. And it has a section in there about no internet, that we do have several students without internet, which means that it's not as an effective way of teaching by having to load everything versus being able to go online and pull information. So I had a meeting with all of the principals today, and we came up with the directors, and we came up with an excellent solution. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to make an announcement tonight after this board meeting that on November 19th, for between the hours of 11 and 1, for students who do not have good internet, we're going to have a bus driver, drive their route to their house, pick up their iPad in totes, take them back to the school, and the teachers will access the information, do the uploads, downloads on the iPads, and then the iPads will be delivered back to the residents of each student the following day between the same hours, 11 and 1. And with that upload and download of information, that will get our students through till December 3rd when they return. So that may help. We also, I'm going to make parents aware that students can come in to the school to get help because the teachers will be there. And so if parents, the kids are really, they're really getting the hang of this. Some of the kids are really starting to move forward pretty well, and parents are picking it up pretty good. We've worked out a lot of the bugs, but I want to have people in the schools that we can continue to help and assist students. So I think it's a pretty good solution, and even after today, what I think we may try to do when students come back, our distance learning students that are having challenges with uploading and downloading information, I think we're going to try to work out a route on Wednesdays that bus drivers go out and do the same thing with picking up the iPads, because it's just simply getting the iPads to a strong internet location, and then everything will either download or upload that they need. But a lot of people have just weak internet, and stuff just spins. So,
Well, I know Birch River had a problem today, the school did, with the internet, but we had power outage yesterday and the internet was out. And I don't know if that was attributed to their problem today.
Yeah, all they had to do was turn their server on this morning, and that was it.
Well, apparently, they were having problems after that because it was like afternoon when,
The only call that I got was that I have a text from the principal Brundtland this morning at about 8 o'clock, and she told me it was working at 8 o'clock this morning. That's the last contact I got from the school.
Did you say they'd be returned the same day or the next day?
the next day. So picking them up on November 19th and returning, that's Thursday, and then returning them on Friday, November the 20th.
Same time, 11 to 1.
Yeah, but what we're going to have is, we have a form that's been created that Chris is going to put up. So on this communication, we'll put it out on Facebook and on our website, and I will do a call out. So parents will, you know what we need to add to that? We need to add information that if they can't access this form, that they need to call the school. I left that off there.
Okay.
So anyway, parents can either log in if they have internet, but when I do the call out, I'll make sure I tell parents, if you don't have internet, call their school, give the information, and then we will have a driver, or we'll have someone call the parent and set up a time so the kids are not just standing, or people are not standing around waiting for hours. We'll schedule a time so they'll know when to be there. But I think that's a pretty good solution for us.
Do those need to be unloaded and unpacked off the bus to load up to them?
What I think we're going to do is we're going to have totes with school names on them. So when the kids come, they'll just put it in the tote, and then they'll be unloaded at the school, at each school. And then the teachers, of course, will unpack them, spray them, have gloves, and then they'll open them up, make sure that everything's loading and downloading and uploading. Chris is going to have to work on probably removing passwords and stuff so the teachers can get in and get the information loaded. And then they'll pack them back in their containers, and the following day they'll be delivered.
So this will be for the next 2.5 weeks?
We'll do it one day, this Thursday and
I
Friday,
mean, this,
and it will cover that time, yeah. It'll cover that time period. Then when we get back, hopefully we can return December the 3rd. If we don't return December the 3rd, then we'll continue that practice to get the support out. If we do return December 3rd, then I'll probably alternate that to Wednesday and do that for our distance learning students who are out. And that will be an additional support that we can provide. I mean, we're trying to think of everything we can to help the kids.
you
You've
all,
done a great job.
yeah, you've all worked very hard, everyone.
Thank you. I will tell you, it's not an easy job,
Well, you try
as you
to,
know.
try to meet every single need that's out there, and it's nearly impossible, but I appreciate all the efforts that you're putting into it. On another subject, the other night when we had the LSICs, which by the way, I was just very thoroughly impressed with the 4 schools that presented, and they did a wonderful job. There was a lot of expression from those schools that they would like to have somebody trained
Yes.
at the school to go in to, be able to do some of the work on the computers, that type of thing. Have you made any thoughts on how we
Yes.
might get that done? And-
Yes, I've already talked to Chris about that, and
Yeah,
with
Chris-
the teachers reporting this week, I think it's gonna be easier, but he's got plans in
In our
place.
principals meeting, I asked that any of them that would like to be trained, just contact me and we can do that. Because there was actually a lot of reports in the opposite direction. We had teachers refusing to help because it wasn't their job in the beginning.
Yes,
And so,
so that's why I was a little surprised at the
Yeah.
LSIC presentation when they asked that, because I've got emails from union reps stating otherwise. So that's why I open it up, telling the principals, everyone, if you have teachers who you think will do it and want to do it, we're happy to train them.
Is it possible to do it during these days?
Yes, that's what I told them. We do them on these days that students are not present. Yes.
Aren't the TISs, are they in every school for part of the day, every day?
We have a schedule of when TISs report. Tony's not here to speak.
Is there ever a day when they're not in a school?
but yes, we only have, I think, 4 TISs for the whole county.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5. So yeah, there are days that they're not there, but the TIS's job technically isn't to diagnose a problem, it's to help the teachers implement technology into their lessons plan. That's the TIS's sole. Now a lot of times what they think, a teacher may think is a problem actually isn't really a technology issue, it's they're not familiar enough with the software to see how that it works. So a lot of times it'll seem like a test fixes a technology issue, which was just really a knowledge issue with the teacher. So, but they do help with that, yes.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else unless you guys do.
What is have you had any knowledge from the health department, how long the spike is going on, Nicholas?
No, they just had the rise really this weekend. We've not had outbreaks in the school. We've not had transmissions in the school. I mean, the schools, we've really been in pretty good shape. It's usually, we've got quarantines from outside the school system. Someone tests positive and then a family member has to quarantine because of that. We're not finding in-school spreading of this at all. I actually don't know of any cases of someone contracting it at school. It's what I'm thinking right now. I don't know of any. We had I don't think.
Probably when they do contact it, it's either at home or outside of the home.
Yep.
It shows that if we do what the health officials say, then we can have groups together like schools, wear masks, social distancing, and then you put up those
Mhm.
dividers also.
We've taken about every precaution that you can take.
Yeah.
You know, we do the
People will do it,
temperatures,
It'll take care of it.
we spray, we clean,
But you know, normally with this time of the school year, a lot of those kids come home sick, runny noses, running a fever,
Get to
and
be the flu season.
Well, the health-
colds, and, I mean, but you're not hearing a whole lot of that right now.
Well, the health department, when they asked, and they hadn't asked before, when they asked, they said they'd like to just give it a break. They said if it wouldn't, if, you know, giving this 1 week, it might be enough of a break till December the 3rd, because my challenge is really having teachers. You know, and honestly, and I tell people here, you know, don't come in. If you don't feel well, don't come in. See, you know, make sure you feel better, because I don't want, I mean, if someone here gets it and we have to quarantine, it's gonna be bad. I mean, we work pretty closely together in every office. I mean, I would suspect probably most of us, if anybody would get it, we probably all have it. And because they're saying even with or without face masks, they quarantine you. We try to stay away from each other as much as we can when we're talking, but you just end up working together so much, it's,
Overall contact tracing, Rocky can attest to this, but we haven't spread the virus at the schools. There's not been a documented case in Nicholas County schools when one person has came to school with it and tested positive, and anybody else in the school has got it from them.
Yep.
And I think that speaks volumes for our kids and our teachers and our custodians and
So
they're doing an excellent job. I mean,
Yeah.
our folks are to be commended.
it seems to be that the safest place for the kids to be is in school, where they do have some protection.
Yeah, if we can get enough teachers, that's our biggest challenge right now. And I hate doubling up class sizes to really large sizes. I just hate doing that. But we've done well, and like I said, our folks really are to be commended for the job that they're doing.
Some of them start vaccines in January.
Your kids aren't going to get it.
West Virginia will be the last place to get it.
That's
They
what I
don't
was
care, they don't care if we die or not.
I think it'll be New York.
Yeah, we'll be the last. Well, maybe New York, that might be this, one might be the last one. Okay, anything else on that?
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
Okay.
Item 10 on this evening's agenda is reports, update on the pay policy. Our work is completed, so Madam Secretary, you can move that to the next agenda. We hadn't probably completed it when you were putting the agenda together.
Oh, the pay, can I ask one question about one thing I'd like to make a statement of, that I'd like to bring to the next board meeting?
Yes.
We do have 3 individuals in the board office that have worked very, very hard, and they didn't benefit from any raise, and they didn't benefit from the stipend, and that's something that I would like to bring back before the board to ask for consideration to give those 3 individuals something.
The stipend.
Yes,
Okay, all right. And you'll bring that back at the...
I will. I just want to give you an idea that that's something that, it's my fault. Actually, I think when Mr. Moose asked me the question, how many got the raise, I hadn't even thought about it. And then when we started counting it up, and I realized, okay, 5 did, 3 didn't. So it was an oversight on my part, or I would have mentioned it. And one of the individuals I did talk to had told me previously, no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I want to see everybody get it. Then the person come back and says, you know, it does kind of make me feel bad. And I said, well, it should, and I understand that. So,
Madam Secretary, you'll add that to the next agenda. Okay, the SESC, we don't meet until Wednesday of this week, and I should have a report for you on December the 7th. Bright Horizons, Mrs. Kaufman,
You don't meet until Thursday of this week.
so you'll have a report. on the
Yeah, but I
7th.
mean, we don't have any students going there. I don't know if we will in the future. Lydia,
Bright Horizons.
Bright Horizons, are we?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from them, and of course our students are not.
No, that's why I was asking. We don't have any students there. I mean, I think last year we had a few from Richwood went,
Correct.
but this year we don't have any. So,
The Nicholas County is served mostly here, and I know the special ed teachers in Richwood do an excellent job with providing services for their students. And I don't remember the reasons of why they weren't using it, but I tend to rely on their expertise and judgment of whether they want to or not. So I mean,
And
they're
this
very
year,
committed.
this year, we hadn't even discussed it just simply because of going back and forth and being exposed. There are other adults that are there working that they would come in contact with potentially. So we just were a little bit concerned about that. So we hadn't even, there's some other transition things that the state has offered that we just right now aren't.
But I mean, there's really nothing for me to report on
Right.
because we don't have any kids there.
Okay. All righty, item 11, Madam Secretary, any delegations tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you. Item 12, items for future agendas, and I think we've already noted one. Okay. Any others? Madam Secretary, what are, you have listed here, our next LSIC meeting is, we'll go through that in a minute, I just was going to question that there.
I thought we were gonna have, the career tech to come back for the, reward that they got that we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't get in there last week.
Yeah, they're going to schedule it and come back.
Okay.
Were they out, yeah, okay, that might.
I thought they asked for to do that at the LSIC meeting.
Yeah, he did mention that.
Or did it?
Okay, items for, future meeting dates. We have a regular meeting scheduled for 3 weeks from tonight, December the 7th, here at the board office. And then we have one on December the 15th at Glade Creek Elementary. And we'll be hearing from 4 schools at that time. I think it's Nicholas County High School, Summersville Middle School, Golly River, Glade, might be 5, Glade Creek and the Career Center. So that'll be December the 15th. All meetings start at 5 o'clock, of course. And then we have another regular meeting on December the 21st here at the board office.
Oh, that's Christmas.
Yeah, close to Christmas.
What if we were to have someone from the city of Bridgewood come here and speak and answer questions? Would that be under delegations, but that would limit them to, what, 5 minutes?
5 minutes. Yeah. 3 minutes.
Items for future agenda, could we put that on there as a possibility? And I'll notify you.
That would be fine.
I was going to say, if you do, then we need the architect here because, and I can have some state representatives here. I mean, because the thing of it is, if they're saying one thing, we're still not getting the permit. So if they say one thing, we need to have someone else. So it depends on where you take it.
I think that would be, good, but even better than that, because this is something that it's going to take some work and some time to do. I would suggest that the city of Bridgewood come and meet with the superintendent and the architect, where they sit down around the table, look at whatever they're doing, talk about it, and then go from there. Coming to here, I don't know that it's just going to be.
And it would even be fine if we had 2 board members that wanted to sit in and listen to discussion. Maybe Mr. Moose, maybe you, Dr. Phoenix. There's nothing to hide here. Something just has to be resolved.
Could you ask them if they would care to do that?
Yes, sir.
Sit down with the superintendent and the architect in the meeting? I greatly appreciate that,
So we wouldn't need to meet as a board if this would get resolved.
Well, I think that we need to leave that open, that we could call a special meeting if we need to, after they've had a meeting.
And hopefully there'll be no need.
Hey, hopefully there's no need.
Right.
Okay, before I ask for adjournment to this evening's meeting, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I guess we'll all be eating at our houses alone, but hope everybody has a nice Thanksgiving. Is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Moose, seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. We're adjourned at what, 6:46 p.m.?